Mr. Transformers 96 here with another ranking video. This time I'm going to be ranking the 10 Build-A-Figures of 2021 from Marvel Legends, from my least favorite to my favorite. So overall, as you can see, here are the Build-A-Figures released this year. I did purchase all of them, actually. I don't think I missed a single Build-A-Figure this year. So with that, this should be a fun ranking to have a kind of complete set to go off of. We have some variety here, all different shapes and sizes, mostly comic with a couple movies and even an animated one, so a bit of range there as well. And yeah, overall, a decent assortment of Build-A-Figures this year. I think that there were some great ones, but also some bad ones, unfortunately. But let's get started ranking these from my least favorite to my favorite. Of course, these are just my personal opinions, and although I am mainly, focusing on the figure quality, I do just have some kind of enjoyment with the figure that I put in there as well. So if I personally enjoyed Build-A-Figure over another, that one definitely has an edge. So let's get started, starting off with my least favorite Build-A-Figure of the year. And my least favorite Build-A-Figure of 2021 does have to be the Falcon Wings from the Disney Plus series. So this is the type of Build-A-Figure that I really don't like. I understand that having Falcon with his full wings is a bit much as a standard figure, so I get that we couldn't have that. This would be more of a deluxe figure type of thing. So I'm okay with this being the Build-A-Figure. However, what you're looking at right now is not the Build-A-Figure. You have to purchase Falcon by himself, and then the wings themselves are the Build-A-Figure that you have to buy 6 or 7 individual figures to actually complete. And I find that very disappointing. If the wings were truly deluxe, had moving pieces, like substantial, not just little clips in the middle of them, things like that, and a high, paint scheme, made them even bigger too, because they should be a little bit bigger. And if they really went all out on the wings, you could make the wings the Build-A-Figure themselves. But the way that they did it here is very standard. It's kind of the bare minimum that they can do for the wings, where they still look good, but they're nothing too special. And then having to buy the figure separately is incredibly annoying. They've done this in the past with Vulture. Vulture's wings, though, are much bigger, so I didn't like it then, but it was even much better than it is now. Had they included Sam with the Build-A-Figure pieces, you got a piece of the wing, and then a limb for him, with every person, something like that, so that you build it all together, that would make it so much better. But unfortunately, they really cheaped out and did the bare minimum they absolutely could, and didn't even include the figure. And taking that 9th spot, we have Gilgamesh from the Eternal series. This is something that really shouldn't be a Build-A-Figure, just like the last one. He is your standard size figure. Now, of the Eternals, he is the bulkiest, but he's the bulkiest in a very minute fashion. He's got a little bit more bulk on him. It's like making Juan a Build-A-Figure of a Dr. Strange-Wave. Yeah, he's maybe a little bit more plastic than the rest, but not much. So it's the same type of thing, and very disappointing. What makes it more annoying, because if this is a situation where they did an entire Eternals wave, and man, the only character that would make sense of making a figure for would be him, then okay, I get it, I understand it, I can forgive it. But that's not the case. Within this movie, you have a ton of deviants, one of which they did make a figure of, but instead of making that the Build-A-Figure, which would have been completely logical, they made it a deluxe figure that you just had to spend more to get. So again, it's just Hasbro being cheap when it's very obvious what they should have done and what was the right thing to do. But unfortunately they didn't. They figured that they get you to build the Build-A-Figure for just a standard figure and then buy the one that is a Build-A-Figure, size for extra. So that is very annoying. And, nothing wrong with this figure. He's a good figure, but he's not a good Build-A-Figure. And taking that 8th spot, we have Stiltman from the SpiderMan series. This was the first Build-A-Figure of the year. So this Build-A-Figure is okay. We're starting to get a little bit better here, where he is just your normal size figure, except with very much extended legs. I love, the one big thing that I like about this guy being a Build-A-Figure is the fact that you can get extra legs to make him as tall as you want, which is great. The figure himself, I don't think is amazing, though. The whole apparatus from his upper torso that, you know, goes around his head and on his back is all just a backpack piece that just does not actually plug into his back. It's very annoying. It's always just very much loose on him, and therefore doesn't look the best. And the legs themselves, you really can't get him to stand on them. They have virtually no articulation at all. There is articulation in the ankles, but it's like there's no range with it. That's kind of pointless. So I wish that they kind of did something different with this guy. Maybe made it where, I'm not saying every single little slit there should have a ball joint, but I think that they should have a ball joint maybe every 3 or 4 of those slits to give you a little bit of articulation, so that he's not just kind of like a stick, because he very much just feels like a stick right now. It's like they took just a regular Marvel Legends figure and just gave him 2 sticks for legs. So it's a little disappointing. I think that they could have done this figure a lot better, but I love the functionality of being able to make him as tall as you want. I think that's cool, but overall, figure-wise, I actually do not think they did this Build-A-Figure particularly well. And in 7th place, we have the Watcher from the Disney Plus What If wave. So this was a Build-A-Figure that when it was announced as they were kind of showing the wave, I'm like, I know who the Build-A-Figure is, I can't wait for it. And then they showed the Watcher, because I think myself and everyone else expected the Hydra Stomper to be the Build-A-Figure. So this was a disappointing one when it was first shown. I will say that it's more impressive in person though. It has it's very large. I guess when I was looking at it, when they were first showing it, I figured that he would be bigger than your average figure, but not by a whole ton, but this guy is actually quite a bit larger than your average figure, taller, and then just bulkier in general. He comes with so many kind of robe pieces as well that he looks like more of a complete package, which is very nice. We did also end up getting the Hydra Stomper. However, he was released not only as a deluxe, but I call it a super deluxe, because they charge like $55 for him. So that was disappointing. I don't think the Watcher is important or needed enough to have a figure of like this. I think that having the Hydra Stomper as the Build-A-Figure would have been fantastic. So a little disappointing when it comes to that, as well as the costume. I think that some people, this is a much more classic looking Watcher costume, so that's great. However, I think when it comes to Marvel Legends, the kind of battle suit ready Watcher costume would have been the better one to go with, for the fact that this one, he's got fully articulated, up to par Marvel Legends legs that he can't use at all, because his robe piece, not only is there no slit in it so that you can kind of move it, but it's also a relatively hard plastic. It's a little bit rubberish, but it's pretty hard, so you can't do anything with the legs. You could give him Stiltman legs and be perfectly fine, just little sticks that couldn't move at all. He does have the full range, but it's pointless. And then when even with the full range up top, there's not a whole lot you can do with this guy. You gotta have him just standing there. So I think that for a figure, they should have gone with the battle version of him. I think that would have been much better. Or better yet, instead of doing him, again, either the Hydra Stomper or even the Ultron, the Infinity Ultron, that would have been much better too. So in my opinion, not a bad figure, but character-wise and costume-wise, I don't think they did the best choice. And next up we have Mr. Hyde from the Shang-Chi wave. So this Build-A-Figure is more of kind of what I like when it comes to Build-A-Figures. I like the just kind of really bulky characters. This figure, gets a little bit knocked down for the fact that there's a lot of reused pieces. There's some reused pieces from Kingpin here, but they fit. So, I can't complain. Character-wise, I'm not a huge fan of this character. I don't like the concept of just kind of the classic Universal monsters being Marvel characters. I've never been a big fan of, so I think that's why I'm a little bit not loving this character's choice. But figure-wise, just looking at the figure, it's quite good. I think the suit looks really nice. The head sculpt I really like. A ton of intensity going on there. Maybe a wash around the teeth to really differentiate each tooth would have been really nice, and set it off the top, because the paintwork around the eyes is really good. So overall, this is a nice figure. Character-wise, not one that myself or I think many people were really needing, but figure-wise, I think that they did a great job. Taking that 5th spot, we have the Sentinel from the X-Men series. So this was a very neat Build-A-Figure. This is, you know, the way that you can do kind of a smaller Build-A-Figure, but still make it very much a Build-A-Figure, which I really enjoy. So obviously this thing is incredibly skinny, much skinnier than... It is the skinniest Build-A-Figure on this this list. I think it's even skinnier than Gilgamesh, but very tall, and then really bulks up around the upper chest, and the 3 heads are very cool. I would have maybe put it a little bit higher on this list had it had some better engineering when it comes to those heads. The way that they snap in is not very secure, and it's very difficult to utilize the ball joint there, because there's a ball joint at the base of the neck and then a ball joint at the base of the head, and they're pretty hard to manipulate, to be honest. So I'm not a big fan of that. But overall, really like the kind of spindly, it almost gives it a creepy kind of design. Articulation is incredibly good. It's so thin that, you know, there isn't portions of its body that are hindering, especially at the hips. You can get full range of motion at the hips there. You can do a ton of stuff, which is very cool. So overall, this is very nice. It's disappointing that they make a Build-A-Figure something that's army buildable. It would have been really cool if this had been a deluxe figure, so you can buy like a whole bunch. But nonetheless, this is a very unique and very cool Build-A-Figure. And next up we have Zenu. This is Build-A-Figures from the Villains series. So this is a nice Build-A-Figure. The reason that it's a little bit less from the top is just for the fact that there are some reuse pieces here. You do kind of reuse some of the other kind of chunkier, kind of bulky, furry Build-A-Figures that they've done in the past, or you know, as of late. However, I really like some of the design aspects here. Really like that head sculpt. I think it's a really cool design, and I love the fact that he has 3 digits for the fingers and the toes. I think that gives him a cool look. The paint work is done very nicely here. It's pure white, but then it has a great blue that's been washed and brushed into it to really bring out some of the texture and the detail and give him some depth. Overall, a very large Build-A-Figure. Might be the tallest, I mean, other than Stiltman, of the Build-A-Figures this year, and he's just got the bulk to boot, so quite a nice kind of meaty Build-A-Figure. And kicking off the top 3, we have Colossus from the Age of Apocalypse series, basically series 2 for that series. Overall, this is a really nice Build-A-Figure, a completely new sculpt. He's got bulk, he's got height. He's not the bulkiest or the tallest Build-A-Figure on this list, but the sculpt itself I think is really solid. Obviously, having to sculpt the muscle work and the metal muscle work is very difficult. There's a lot going on there. He comes with interchangeable hands, which I think is nice. Love the expression on the face, the tassels being posed is a nice touch and something they didn't have to do, and overall just a really nice solid Build-A-Figure. The Build-A-Figure from the first series of the Age of Apocalypse series was my favorite Build-A-Figure of the year, so the second Build-A-Figure, not quite my favorite, but definitely still good enough to make it in the top 3. And in silver place, we have Armadillo from the SpiderMan Build-A-Figure wave. I really enjoyed this Build-A-Figure. He's 100% new sculpt. He's huge. He's the beefiest Build-A-Figure on this wave. And the overall design of him, I think, is really cool. It's a character that I've visually always found pretty interesting, and I think that they executed it really nicely. Love the sharp claws on the hands and the toes. The armored sections look really nice. The only thing I could maybe say about the armored sections is that there is some variation color-wise between like the armor on his back, armor on his legs, armors on his legs, or arms, I mean. So I wish that was a little bit more cohesive. But overall, this is really nicely done. I also like the fading color-wise when it comes to the torso. I think that that's pretty impressive. And overall, just a really large, bulky, menacing Build-A-Figure that's quite unique. And my favorite Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure of 2021 from the Iron Man wave has to be Ursa Major. So very excited to get this Build-A-Figure. This was a one that I just find really great, and it was one that was surprisingly great. That doesn't happen too often. You know, typically the Build-A-Figures I'm most looking forward to are usually the ones that I like the most. However, this was not the case. I actually was not looking forward very much to this Build-A-Figure. I wanted him so that he could kind of complete the Russian Avengers team, basically. But figure himself, nothing too special in my mind before I built it. Once I built it, though, I was very impressed. I thought that this reused some pieces, which it does not. It's a totally new sculpt, which is awesome. The range of motion on this guy is fantastic. He is one, if not the best articulated Build-A-Figure on here, and considering he is so bulky, that's very surprising. You can get him in a ton of poses. Love the aggressive bear face sculpt, and overall just a really cool, really good Build-A-Figure that I had a ton of fun with. It doesn't matter what pose you put this guy in, he looks awesome, and that's pretty impressive, to be honest. So 100%, and this was an easy number one for me as my favorite Build-A-Figure of 2021. And there's my ranking of my least favorite to my favorite Build-A-Figure of 2021. Overall, this was a pretty solid year for Build-A-Figures, I think. I think that we did get a good range of Build-A-Figure. Unfortunately, it was pretty easy to know what were the disappointing Build-A-Figures of the year, so that's always unfortunate. But we also had some really great ones too, so I definitely can't complain. And although I felt that this year was very much about repackaging figures or even doing new figures, but just in retro packaging so that you didn't have to do a Build-A-Figure, we still got 10 Build-A-Figures, which is kind of the normal rate, so it's hard for me to complain there as well. I do worry and kind of foresee a future where we get very few Build-A-Figures, less and less, and it's more becoming about the packaging, or at least they use the packaging as an excuse not to do a Build-A-Figure. So I am worried about that come the future. However, for right now, they're still doing well. Hopefully we get 10 Build-A-Figures next year as well, and yeah, looking forward to some of them. I think that we only have like one Build-A-Figure that's available for pre-order as of recording this, just the Doctor Strange wave, I think. I can't remember if there's another one. So that's a little unusual. Usually there's a couple Build-A-Figures that are ready to release come January. But overall, this year had a big range, but some very good Build-A-Figures, and some different ranges as far as movie, animation, and then mostly comic. Definitely a comic year for Build-A-Figures. But there you go, that's my ranking. Let me know what you guys think of my choices and ranking. I'd love to hear what your guys' ranking would be, and thanks so much for watching.